Okay, guys, how are you doing? So this is actually, I'm going to go over the code for the project, which is Unit 4, Lesson 12, 13, and 14. It's all the same. So you can actually do it on 12, 13, or 14. You'll have all the same materials, everything. If you're using blocks, you'll have all the same block capability and everything. Okay? So this is actually just the coding part. I will go over the written part later. This is just going to be focusing on the coding part. Now, of course, you might be saying, well, some people, we all have different projects, right? So how is this going to help me necessarily? So this is my project right here, which I'll describe in a second. And this code is for my project, but you'll follow the same the type of steps that I'm following right here. You'll be following in your code, and hopefully this will help the people who are having any difficulty with coding be able to finish what they're doing. Okay. I'm not going to go over the design with you. I feel like most people have the design covered right now. I'm just going to go over the code, but I'm going to describe what this app is going to do right here. So this actually increase a little bit and just talk about it. My app is called What NYC Borough Should I Live In? So just the point of my app right here is that you put your name in, which is optional. You don't have to have a text input saying your name. That's one optional thing. Remember, what was required on this particular app is that you have a conditional that evaluates string and a conditional that evaluates string and number. So that's what I have right here. The string is right here. What level of noise do you want to live near? Okay, so these on the left are labels, by the way, in case you were curious about the design. This right here is a text input, which you need to rename everything, by the way. I called it name input. Make sure a big error I keep on seeing people do is that they're using text areas as their input. That will mess up your program, or vice versa. You're using input for your text area. Text area is just an output. And obviously, text input is for the user to put stuff into. All right, this right here is a drop-down list right here. So if you're curious how I did that, just curious right here, remember, drop-down lists are right here. Okay, there they are. And then you just enter in right here under the options what you have. I only have two options, very noisy, moderately noisy. If you remember, I said in class a whole bunch of times, the more options you have, the longer the code is going to be, which is fine, but I want mine to be just nice and simple, so I just had two options there. Now, right here for numbers, you can have as many options as you want because, again, we're going to be using less than, greater than to form our decisions. So that's not as important. So notice right here, I have what's called a slider. I showed this in class before. So that's what I used to bring that over there. And then right here is a text area. Okay, remember to output is text area right there. The slider I called rent slider. The amount of money that it's going to output right there that's going to be called rent text. All right. I did create a button. I did learn later that you don't necessarily have to if you don't want to. We'll talk about that later though. Okay. All right, so let's go on to the actual code. Hope everyone is doing well, by the way. Those people viewing this at home, I hope all is going well. Hope everyone's in good health. All right. All right. Hope everyone had a good break as well. All right, let's do it. So the first thing that I want to do is create my variable. So I'm going to go and just make a comment. I'm going to create the variables. All right, you should have your app development guide out here. All right, if you do not have that, let me know, but that is on Google Classroom. You should have an app development guide right here that you already filled out what your variables are, okay? Just to remind you what it looks like right here. It looks like this right here. All right, notice I put right here the inputs, which is name, rent cost, noise level. The output is going to output the borough name and the borough image. All right, so you're going to put in your name, your rent cost, and noise level, and then it's going to go and spit out the name of the borough that you should live in, and then a little picture of the borough. Okay, and then here are my variables right here that I came up with. We have the name, All right, we have the noise. That's going to be the that's going to store the noise level, and these are both string. Okay, of course, remember anything that I'm not going to be using math with is string. That's the easiest way to remember that. Cost, obviously, I could do math with cost. I could add them together, whatever. All right, that's the desired rent per month. That's a number. The borough, that's my output, which I made a variable. Okay, that's also a string, output of the borough. And I had another variable called borough image. That's going to output the actual borough image. All right, I'll tell you that later. Okay, let's just focus on the main, the meat and potatoes, if you will. Okay, let's do it. All right, so let's create my variable. So I had right here. First variable is just going to be one that stores my name. I just called that my name. Okay, and I just initialize that as an empty string. Okay, next I have right here the noise level. As I said, there's no particular order you have to go in here, by the way. Okay, so I could actually initialize this as something. You notice right here, it says right here that it starts out with very noisy. So maybe I'll initialize that as very noisy. When I say initialize, basically it means when the program first runs, what's it going to set as? If I don't have anything there, it'll be set as empty. But if I put something there, then it's going to be, there'll be something in that variable immediately. Sometimes you can run into problems if you don't initialize. All right, the cost right here. That's obviously the variable. It's just called cost. All right, I'm going to initialize that as 1,000. Now, I didn't mention this, by the way. You can control that in your design menu. This is, remember, the rent. Cost was the rent per month. Obviously, you can have rent less than 1,000 if I wanted to. I just decided to start at 1,000. But notice how I did this. If you are using a slider right here, it has right here the lowest value, which I put as, the minimum value I put as 500, and the maximum value is 5,000 right there. Okay, so that's what it actually starts at. So just showing you how to, if you are using a slider, that's what you're doing. Okay. Okay. Next I have the there we go. Next I have the borough. Okay. I don't need to initialize that at all because that's output. Okay. And borough image. Now, I myself am going to output a picture. If you're going to do that, then just pay attention to this right here. I have a separate variable called borough image. Okay? Questions so far? Nothing? Okay. All right. So I just declared my variables right here. Now, the app development guide, if you're reading that, suggests to do the function first and then an on events. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's good to do the on events first. It's nice and easy. They're right there. On events, remember, are the dealing with the inputs right here. Okay, and I already know by looking at my app what the inputs are, but you also have on your app development guide, it was the name, rent, cost, and noise level were my inputs. Remember, that's what the user is actually going to put in. Okay, so let's go do it. Now, if you want to, go ahead. You can use, blocks for inputs. All right, it might make life a lot easier for you, so that is no problem at all. All right, so what do I have right here? I'll put mine in block mode just so I can just deal with that. Hang on a second. Go. All right. Okay, so I have right here for on events, I have, first of all, the name, right? That's one input. Second input is the noise dropdown. All right, next one is the rent slider. So it looks like I have 3 inputs right here. Now, this right here is not an on event right here. This rent text right here, remember I told you that's text area. All that's going to do is when I move the slider around, it's going to show me the value that the slider is at. Otherwise, you just blindly moving a slider around, you have no idea what the number is. So that makes more sense to have this little, if you have a slider, to have another output box below it so it can show you exactly where you are, okay? All right, so let's go and do the on events. So on events, if you wanted to do text, that's fine. I'm just showing you in blocks because you might find it easier that way. And then we'll move back to text. So again, the very first one we just said was the name. So obviously that's just going to be right there, name input. Okay. And for name input, the actually event that's going to be happening right here. So the first is the ID, which is called name input, which I renamed, by the way. All right. And that is just going to be input. Okay. All right, the second one we have right here is the drop down right here. The noise drop down is the ID. There it is. Okay, and that's once again going to be changed. Remember, for drop downs, the event, or I think they call it action, I believe. Oh, no, they call it type, okay? But I think of that as the event, right? First you have the ID, and then you have the actual event. They say type. All right, that's like, what are you doing here? Are you going to be changing it? Are you inputting stuff in? That's what it is. And the last is basically what's called the callback right here. But essentially, for this, all we need to know is the first two right here. And then we have the slider. It's called right there, rinse slider. And this rinse slider. And that's also going to be as well change. Okay, so sliders change as well. Okay, cool. So I have that all done. Now, if you wanted to do that by text, that's just fine. It would have just, as I've shown in class before, once you start typing, it will come up with their own drop-down list of text. So it's up to you. All right, so now what I'm going to do, now that I did the on events right here, oh, and I'm sorry, it looks like I do have one more in my particular program. You may not have this. I had a button right here, if you notice. This is called the execute button. So I'm sorry about that. So and just to show, if you like doing text, what you could have done is just copy, paste right there. And this right here, it's the execute button, which I literally just called. Watch what happens if you are doing text right here. See, it brings down a little drop down here. So it's execute button. Okay, and this is click for buttons. That's actually click is the event right here. So watch what happens if you don't have anything there. It just comes up with its own drop down list. Okay. All right. There we go. Those are my on events right here. Oh, and for my program, I'm sorry, I forgot one more thing. There's one more on event because notice I have two screens. I didn't show this at first. I have an output screen. You might only have one screen, and that's fine. So this is going to output the name of the borough, and this is, the message, and this is going to output the picture right here. So I had a back button right here, so I need to actually program that as well. Sorry about that. Let's do that. Okay, if you want to, you can just do it this way. So this is just called back button right there, and this once again was click. No problem. Okay, on events are now done. So now we're going to do step 3 right here. So, all right, we're going to take, let's see here. We're going to go through the break actually and just keep on going right here. So right here are my on events and my assignment statements. Okay, so now at this point, since I already did the on events, my next step right here is the assignment statements. So let's go and do that. All right. Okay, so assignment statements is basically, what does that mean? That means that if you look back into my original screen right here, an assignment statement is essentially like when I put my name in here, I want that to store as the variable my name. When I put this drop-down list as, moderately noisy or whatever I had for there, then I want to store that as the variable noise. When I put the cost right here, I want to store that as the variable cost. That's what assignment statements are. How do I make that happen? Well, here we go. Okay. So that's going to be right here. Our first assignment statement is going to be for the name input. So I'm going to say right here, my name equals right here. Now remember, for assignment statements right here, essentially we're going to either get text or get number. In our case, it's actually get text right here, so you can just type it if you want. All right, in a second I'll show you how to do it by blocks if you prefer that way. Or if you have So we have get text, and remember, this is going to be the ID name input, which we have right there. Okay, there we go. Simple as that. Some people prefer to do this by blocks, which is just fine. Okay, so in that case, I would have just, if I preferred blocks, I would have said my name equals, and then I would have dragged and dropped this get text right over there and just put in name input. Okay. Next, right here, we're going to do the noise drop down right here. So that's going to be right here. We'll say noise equals right here. Again, that's going to be get text. And that's going to be the noise input right there. I'll show you how to do this by blocks too if you prefer that. Okay. Rent slider right here. So now we're at rent right here. So that is, remember our variable right there. I could have called that variable rent if I wanted to, I guess, but I called it cost. Doesn't make a difference. So that's going to be cost. Now this is no longer going to be get text, right? So, and by the way, if you prefer blocks, just find the block right there. This is get number. Okay. Hang on, what just happened here? We're using get number right here. So we just go shunk, and there we go. There we go. Okay. So if you prefer blocks, you just go right there, drag and drop right there. Make sure to put the block, and they'll give you a drop down here. But instead of do that, notice right here, if I delete everything, including the quote, look what happens. There already is a drop down right here. I just lost it. There it is. All right, and we're going to be using for cost right here, it's just going to be rent slider. Okay. Close the parenthesis, and there we go. Okay. Now, this analyze next what I have to do for right here. I also wanted to output the actual number right there. So if I want that to happen, what I have to do is I have to do an output, which, as you know, as from class, outputs are set text. Okay. So in this, remember, input would be get text. Output is set text. Okay. So let's do that. So we're going to go and use right here. We're going to say set text. If you want to drag and drop, go. Hang on. Sorry, formatting issues. There we go. So we'll just do set text right there under cost. Okay, the ID, remember, is right here. We want to show the text right here, what it is, and that's going to be rent text right there. There it is. And the output is going to be the variable cost. I suppose it would have been easier if I just named this variable rent, but whatever. Okay, we're calling it cost. Okay. All right, all good. Okay. All right. Let's see here. The next we have the execute button, which we're going to deal with in a second. We'll deal with that later, and we have the back button, which we'll deal with later, okay? So now, just to make sure that we have everything correct right here, what I'm going to do is I want to run this real quick, and if I now move the slider, notice that it should output basically where I'm at. So now we know, looks like I have mine starting at 500, so I said that incorrectly, and going to 4,900 is what I have right there, okay? All right. If you want to change that, by the way, you just click right there. If I want to make that 500 to, let's say I went to 5,000, I'll probably just put 5,200, and that should take care of my situation right there, okay? So if I go there now, and I move it up, there we go. Yeah, so now I can go up to 5,000, okay? Anyway, whatever. So, all right, we're going to go next now, since we did all the, we did right here, let's go through our steps right now, what we've done so far. We created the variables, we did the on events and the assignment statements. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the function. Now remember, in your comment, in their app development guide, they said to add comments, explain the function, what it does, and how it does that, okay? So it might be easier for you to write the function first, and then we can explain, we can just explain it later. So I'm just going to remind myself, need to add comments explaining the function, which is what it does and how it does that. No problem. Okay. So there it is right there. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So we are right here. Officially right now, we are now going to be defining the function. I'm just going to write that right here. Okay, here we go. So, let me increase the size again. Okay. So to define a function right here, what you do first of all, if you can do it in blocks or you can just type it in, but just to remind you in case you just forgot right here, we just go under right there, functions. And that right there is going to be defining it with the word function. It's going to be function and then whatever you name your function, open, close parentheses, and then brace, open, and once the function's over, brace, close. Okay, so what you can do right here, let's go right to the correct amount, and I'm just going to go and drag and drop that. There we are, and that's it on line 32. Okay, cool. Don't worry about that triangle. We haven't called it yet, so that's why it's there. Cool. So my function, I'm calling it update screen. There we go. Okay. So right here, it says open, close parentheses, and then open, close brace. And we put all the information inside the function. Okay. Now, inside this function, there's going to be conditionals. That's what if statements are, right? So that's what we're going to do right here. Now, you should actually have this already written down right here in your app development guide. We had what's right here was a, this was for another student. This was not for mine. So I guess, unfortunately, mine has now been erased. But right here, you have, first of all, what you have is their decisions right here. So for mine right here, essentially, I started out with right here on the very top was my first decision was, and remember, you start out, just to recall that you start out with the more simple one, and then you go to the one with the less options is what you start out with first, right? The most specific one. So mine was the noise, if you remember. All right, and the noise for me, my options were very noisy and moderately noisy. Okay. So I just put right here, very noisy. Okay. We do that in different colors so I can distinguish it. And then you had right here, moderately noisy. I'm just going to abbreviate if you don't mind. Okay. And then we had the cost right here, which good, we already have for this particular one here. So for my app right here, all right, first of all, we had the noise less than 2,000. And then you had the very noisy that's greater than 2,000. So I made my determination that's less than 2,000, greater than 2,000 is what I had right here for very noisy. Okay, so let's do that. And then once I have this, it'll be easy to see. So right here we have less than, it looks like for mine I have less than 2,000. All right, less than 2,000, I deemed that the Bronx because that's a little less expensive to live in. Overall, again, I'm just generalizing here. All right, there's expensive and less expensive parts in every single borough. And then right here, now I have greater than or equal to 2,000. Notice I made this nice and simple right here. And for very noisy, right here, I deemed that Manhattan. Again, this is kind of based on what we already had, okay, or what you know. All right, then next right here, the other one, the moderately noisy right here, looks like it had, first of all, is less than 1,000. So I'll put that in right there. And I had that as, if it's moderately noisy, I had Staten Island. I'm just going to abbreviate right there. Actually, since the extra choice says, I'll write it out so we know that. since we know right there, this is going to be with the if statement. And then the next option I had right here was between 1,000 and 2,000. So what I'm going to do is I'll go and just say right here, all right, I have greater than or equal to 1,000, and right here, less than 2,000. All right, and that was Queens. All right, and then the last one right here was the one that is most expensive right here, which is greater than or equal to 2,000, and I had that as right here. Let me put that right here. All right, and this right here was Brooklyn. Now, right here, as long as you can actually do this properly, now this right here is going to help me with my if-then statements. So let's go back to the if-then statements now. All right, so I can start, the very first one right here is, all right, and if you want to use, once again, if you want to use blocks to help you out with this, that's great. Just go right there to control. And this is, I might use them as well just to show you how to set this up right here. Just go to blocks. You don't have to do this, but it might help. And I'm going to go and drag and drop this if-else statement right here. Now, I know for me, all right, based on this right here, looks like I have one if statement. Then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 if-else statements. And then I'll have basically the one that's left over, which is just going to be an else statement. So that means I have one if, 2 else ifs. I'm sorry, 3 else ifs and 1 else. All right, so let's do that. So I have one if, and what I do is I just press this plus button, else if, else if, else if. There we go. So I have a total of 5 right now. Now, how I determine that, remember, you just look at your total outputs that you had right here. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are good. Okay, so let's go and start typing right here. All right, so hey. All right, so. All right, so first right here, inside right here, you just put the condition. Let me get rid of this so we can increase the size. Okay. All right, so we have, first of all, we had noise, and you just refer to your flow chart and should be okay right there. If noise double equals right here, and I had first option was very noisy, make sure you spell it exactly how you spelled it in your dropdown, or else you will have errors if you don't do that. Okay? And cost is less than 2,000. There we go. And what's going to happen right there is my output right there was borough equals. Now it's a single equals here because that's not part of the part that's the condition right here is where you put the double equal sign, but right here when you're assigning a value, that's single equal. So that's just going to be borough equals Bronx. Okay. Now I'm having an image for me too. So I said my borough is going to equal, also I put right here, Bronx.jpg, okay? Now I'll tell you, the image people, if you have an image, I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. What you had to do is you just had to go and find all of these images on the web and then upload them to code.org. It's not that bad. And remember, this right here was, I'm sorry about that, it was borough image, okay? And I just named it Bronx.jpg, okay? All right. Let's go to the next one. Else if, the second one, if you looked at my flow chart right there, was Manhattan. And that was cost is greater or equal to 2,000. Noise is very noisy, right? So that's what I have right there, okay? Noise, double equals very noisy. And double ampersand. Cost is, in this case, greater than or equal to 2,000. Okay, and in this case, we had borough is Manhattan. Cool. And by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot the semicolon right there. Don't forget that. Semicolon after all your actual statements right there. what's going to output. And right here, borough image right here once again. And if you just like the style right there, one more easy thing to do is just go copy, paste, and I'm just going to change that. I called this image right here that I had downloaded. I'll show you in a second how I did this. Is just Manhattan. Okay. All right, else if. My other one was moderately noisy, if you remember. Just look right here. You just look, okay, moderately noisy was the next one, and less than 1,000, that was Staten Island. There we go. So I just go right here. I'm going to say, and if you want to, if this was easy for you, just go copy right here. And right here, paste. So in this case, I'm just going to change this now to moderately noisy. And in this case right here, our cost was less than 1,000. And I have that in my flowchart. Okay, and this output was that right here. I'm just going to copy paste this right here so I can just fill it out real quick. All right, and moderately noisy and less than 1,000. Remember right here, my flowchart was Staten Island. So let's put right here. Staten Island, and I had this file. My file name was just SI. I'll show you in a minute. The file people, I'll show that in a minute. Okay, next. Now I'm just going to go and copy paste this just for ease right here. If you like to type it, that's fine. Okay. All right, the next one right here we had was cost is greater than or equal to 1,000 and less than 2,000. That was Queens right there. Okay. All right. And this was also moderately noisy, so I have to actually just say right here, cost is greater than or equal to 1,000, and cost is less than 2,000. Okay. Now remember, don't forget, if you did not have a greater, like this was just less than 1,000, right? So that means that this one has to be greater than or equal to, don't forget, okay? So greater than or equal to 1,000, less than 2,000 right there. And in this case, I have right here, I'm just going to copy paste right here so I can just, this in case right here is going to be Queens. And this file I called right here, Queens with lowercase, okay? Else. Now, for else, you never actually have to state the condition. Don't forget that at all. There's no parentheses after else. That's just everything that's left over. The program will know, okay, else, that's just going to be basically whatever is left over. If I were to make like a pie chart right here, if you think about this, like if I have a pie chart right here, first it had the first condition right there, which was the Bronx one. Then we had the Manhattan one. Then we had the Staten Island. Then we had Queens. This last one is going to be the else statement. The computer will know that. So you do not need to make a condition for the else statement at all. So I'm just going to put else right here. And that was the one that was left over. That was borough equals Brooklyn. Okay. And I have borough image right here, don't forget. And right here, my borough image was just called, one second, it was I believe I just called that brooklyn.jpg. Let me see here. Yes, brooklyn.jpg, capital Brooklyn. Okay, there we go. Awesome.